So hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio and my YouTube channel. And I'm super excited to be joined by a very talented actress in the form of Sian Reeves. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, thank you for asking. Lovely to see you.
I mean, obviously this last year has been mad. We better start off by talking about, how it's affected yourself. I mean, obviously the first question, how have you been affected over the last year? It's obviously been tough, but for you work-wise, personally, how has it been?
Yeah, well, I was on tour in a play called By the Waters of Liverpool when this struck, and we'd only been open 2 weeks. And I remember my fella, he came up to watch the show and he said, somebody's died of this disease. And I was like, oh gosh, how often? He said, no, I think it's going to be a pandemic. And I was like, no. He said, you'll be off by Monday. I was like, no way. You know, that's how it started. And sure enough, he was right, and we were off. And I have to say, at the beginning, it was like a rest, because for an actor to suddenly everything is shut down. And so as an actor, that's like never happened to me before in my life, that I don't have to be worried that I'm not going up for anything, worried that I haven't done a audition for something, sad that I've missed out, upset that I didn't get the part. None of that happened and it was wonderful. And the weather was wonderful. And we had a puppy who I'd taken on the tour with me. So I was pretty tired because he was quite little, Ronnie the Rocket. And so at the beginning, it was fun. And I think we all thought it would be over as well, much more quickly. So we were all willing to stay in our houses. And then Christmas was hard, not being able to go to the family. We were all sort of, by then, couldn't believe it. And then the beginning of this year as well, I've gone, oh, what is going on? But I've done loads of volunteering, students with self-tapes. I've done loads of like Zoom tutorials. So I've become quite computer savvy, which I never would have learned, which has been really good. I've been doing these dancing classes with my old dancing teacher's son to keep our brains going, and that's been hilarious, and doing workouts with each other. And I had the best thing is that I met this wonderful young writer called Theo Chester, and I did a play reading for him in July of last year, and it was like the hottest day. It was like 40 or something, and it was the most brilliant play. Anyway, I have just commissioned him, and it has arrived on my desk for me to make it into a feature film.
Wow.
So I would never have met Theo if it wasn't for this. And so I've made another short film with another young director when I was acting in it. I'd have never have met him. Or here comes Ronnie Rocket. I'm just going to lift him up so everybody can see, because he's so sweet.
Oh.
Ronnie has got his own Instagram page. He is the rescue, and he is Staffy Chihuahua, Jack Russell, and he's the light of our lives.
He's adorable.
Anyway, but it's been a busy morning, so he's having to run amok. Please forgive me. Oh, he's such a good boy. Except he started to chase after bikes and runners and scooters. So he's now got a 50-foot lead that is a nightmare. So work-wise, it's been really interesting and creative. And I finished off a short film that I'd shot in the January before we locked down. So I got that completed by a wonderful company called Encore, and that has gone on to win a few festivals. But now I was like, oh, it would be so nice to get back to normal. And I went to see my parents in the garden yesterday for the first time after 8 months, and that was just wonderful. And it was boiling, so they were able to sit outside because they're older, so they don't want to sit outside. So that was genius. So lots of quite positive things, meeting people I'd never would have met before. Doing this for you, I'm sure you've managed to interview lots of really interesting people because we've got time. We want to give something back.
I mean, that's the amazing thing at the moment, is it does mean that although you can't have that physical contact with people, which obviously is something that as humans we love, But it does mean you can be in, you know, 3 places at once. You can, you know, connect with people all over the world. I mean, I've spoken to people in America, in Australia, things that, you know, you can do it over the phone, but it's not quite the same. And obviously there's no way you could be in Australia one day and then, you know, in the UK, you know, 5 minutes later. It's opened up the world, I think, you know, the wonder of technology.
Yes, yeah, which I think is good, but also I do fear for people who are shy, and the more you get stuck inside, the more comfortable you are with not communicating with people. And I think that will be quite tough for a lot of people, because even I was nervous driving, I was nervous stopping off at the petrol station, you know, things that we do normally. So I think that's going to be a little bit hard for quite a few people getting back, you know. And it certainly was for me yesterday. I felt so proud that I'd managed to drive further than 5 minutes. You know, so yeah.
And I mean, the other great thing as well is it's given us a newfound appreciation. I mean, you know, we sort of forgot about them, you know, for a few years, but the NHS, the amazing key workers, everyone, you know, shop workers, everyone, you know, they're back in the forefront of our minds. We're loving what they're doing. We're supporting them. We're doing everything we can. I mean, what's your sort of opinion been of the amazing work they've been doing?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm just so grateful that I haven't had to go in, and none of my close relatives have had to go in. I think they've been incredible. I think they should be paid more. I hope that more people perhaps will train to be nurses and doctors. If they gave them a good wage, then we would have many more staff, which has been the problem. We were understaffed, and that's why they had to lock us down, basically, wasn't it? So I think they've been amazing. I think they all deserve a massive raise, and they deserve a holiday. They must be exhausted coming to the end of this. And I had to go to Moorfields actually in London recently. I had a problem with my eye, and they managed the COVID situation so brilliantly. I mean, I was in A&E, you know, I don't really go to hospital, and I was frightened of going because of COVID and everything. And they were brilliant, and the doctors were brilliant, and you were just sort of escorted around singularly and sat in separate areas. And I just thought, in a way, that's kind of better than us all sitting, 60 of us, in a sweaty waiting room. And there's lots of things that I think they should keep, you know, like at the tills. I think that those screens should stay up. And, you know, when you're in your bagging area, those screens are really good, because I don't know, it helps me balance my shopping. But to do with like the poor people who are, you know, swiping, hey Ronnie, who are swiping our food, it's like, you know, they don't want to be coughed on, do they, in the winter? So how brilliant. I went into Aldi the other day. They've got some super like screens set up there, and I thought this should stay, really. There's lots of things that we've learned, you know, like the international thing, but also protective. You know, I think we'd perhaps all be a bit more clean, you know, washing our hands a little bit more, and washing the trolleys. You know, it's kind of good. It's made us, you know, get a little bit cleaner. But they've all been incredible, and I don't, you know, people who've lost people, it's been dreadful. And just thank you to all of them, really, every single one of them.
And I mean, you've been doing a bit of radio yourself. So how did that come about for you?
Well, it was when my daughter grew up, really, and left home, and I was like, oh, I used to love volunteering at the school and doing the plays, and I really like children, and so I started volunteering at Great Ormond Street with Radio Lollipop, which is only 2 people man the station, and it's underground at Great Ormond Street, and then the rest of us go around and choose and offer to play games and or draw or just chat to the relatives or the children who are in the hospital. Of course, that's broken down because of COVID. But and I volunteered in Moorfields actually when I first came to London, because my mum said I should stop being frightened and depressed and go and volunteer at Moorfields, which was where she'd been, and they'd been amazing to her. So Yeah, it's and we did a David Walliams let me and like about 20 other actors read his book Awful Auntie, and I've got Saoirse and Monica Dixon from the Derry Girls coming in, and I've got all these, you know, extraordinary accents. Lovely Welsh girl, and Annette Badland, who's an Outlander, came, and we did all these wonderful. The whole book we did it on 2 Sundays, and we put that out on the radio. It has one airwave radio lollipop in the hospital. So that's something I'm looking into doing a bit more of, actually, because I've developed a podcast that I would like to try and, which might make some money. I was in the original cast of Les Miserables 35 years ago, and I've called it 35 Miserable Years Later. And I've been interviewing all the original cast, and I thought, well, if it did make some money, then we could donate it to the children's hospitals, you know, or set up like little drama workshops in underprivileged schools, you know, because even if you don't want to be an actor, drama workshops are really good just to help you speak or express something if you're unhappy or you haven't got a voice at home and you suddenly want to be heard. So I think it's given us a chance to have a little think about ourselves and see what we can perhaps do. I felt a bit like lazy, actually, during the time.
Now, I just wanted to say you've had an amazing career, but I mean, let's talk about a few of the highlights because I mean, of course, Cutting It was one of the big series for you. Obviously, playing the role of Sydney and you know that cast was amazing. The show was great. What was it like being a part of that program?
Oh, it was just brilliant. It was brilliant. We had the best time. We did, and you hear actors saying this, but you don't have the best time on every job. You really don't. But this felt like we were at uni all together, staying in a block of flats all together. And I was cutting loose, breaking loose. It was wonderful. My daughter was 4 at that time. Excuse me. And she used to come up and just love being with the girls and the makeup and the clothes. The scripts were brilliant. Our characters were brilliant. Debbie Horsfield, the writer, was amazing. All of us stayed friends for a good long while, actually, afterwards, which is quite rare. Yeah, I had a really great time on Cutting It. 4 series. Was ace.
I mean, I can't believe how long ago it was because it was early 2000s that it was obviously on. I think it was around about 2005 it finished. I mean, obviously, you know, fast forward, you know, nearly 16 years. Would you love to do a reunion of that show? Is that something you'd love to do in the future?
Oh my God. That would be a great idea because Sydney, gosh, it would be, and it would be really good. And I think what's interesting about telly at the moment is it's got kind of global, and there's people in programs from all over the world, and which is great, but they tend to be like big stars as well, you know, really big names. And about that time in the, you know, the 2000s, the drama that was coming out of Manchester specifically was so amazing. And it wasn't with, you know, nobody knew who I was, you know, then. Well, probably, I mean, Angela had been in Coronation Street, hadn't she? You know, but nobody really knew. We weren't big movie stars. And so it gave us a chance, I think, to make a really perfect piece where everybody was exactly right for their parts. And that's how you make something brilliant, I think. Whereas these days they're sort of having to cast big names because there's so many channels to choose from. You know, I'm getting further and further down the shelves, you know, because they need someone to click on that box to watch things, you know. So I think it's a shame. I think there's going to be a lot more low budget stuff being made, which are brilliant stories and the correct actors involved and people who aren't that particularly well known at all will get the opportunities, and then there'll be the big glossy blockbusters. But it was a really brilliant time to be around and filming in Manchester. It was amazing. They were making so much good TV then.
I mean, another great role that you played was, of course, Bianca on Mount Pleasant. I was absolutely hooked on that show. I absolutely loved it. I mean, I had the pleasure of interviewing Daniel Ryan, who, of course, such a great star. Also, you know, Sally Lindsay was on the show. You just had an amazing cast. I mean, why do you think it was that people loved that show so much? Because it had such a kind of an online following.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was put on Sky to start with, you know, just Sky, and it was a massive hit on Sky. Whereas Sky is now for everyone, isn't it? Um, I think the story was brilliant. The writer Sarah Hooper, she's ace. I think it's based on her and her wonderful husband, really a bit. But she's really an interesting writer, Sarah, because you know Paula Wilcox was a thief in the first series. Paula is fantastic, and she was like a little petty thief, and then she falls in love with a great big security guy. You know, it was and Bianca, my character, this awful sort of really nice, lonely woman who only had her sexualness to thrust at people. You know, oh, it was really good writing. Had a very nice time on that, and yeah, and lovely, a really good set of people, and the lovely Bobby Ball, who has sadly gone, which is so sad. He was brilliant. He was a brilliant actor, you know, because everyone remembers him doing his Rock on Tommy, you know. But he was a really good actor. And Pauline Collins was his wife in the first series. You know, she's genius. I was in a film with Pauline as well just after that with Joan Collins and her. So that was amazing watching those two. But yeah, it was really good story, I think. Everybody was quite odd,
I imagine as well,
except for
because
Sally and Dan.
I imagine, obviously, though, for you as well. I mean, so many amazingly talented actors on that show that even yourself, I imagine, you're still learning so much from all these actors and just getting to work with, you know, like David Bradley as well, and you know, all these amazing cast.
Yeah, I'd forgotten. How could I forget Bradders? Yeah, David Bradley. Oh my God, I love him. He's the sweetest, wonderful guy. He did you know, he was in Harry Potter, of course, as that weird caretaker. And he very kindly did a little video for me for my daughter. Get out of the door, or whatever, you know, his famous line was. It was brilliant when I came home and played it to her. Get out the beds or something. I can't remember what it was now. But yes, I mean, and Paula as well, you know, it was amazing to watch him and her and Bobby and Pauline, and Stephanie Beecham came and did a little moment on it. And then when I did this film with Joan Collins and Pauline Collins and Franco Nero, you know, it's you learn so much all the time, not just from the older guys, you know, you learn tips from the younger ones as well.
Because I was going to say the other thing with that show is I mean when I spoke to Daniel Ryan, I mean I got the impression that towards the end of the series you had actors that were sort of banging on the door wanting to be a part of it. So that must be quite nice to know that you're part of a show that people are dying to be on.
Yeah, I mean, in series 3, I had a big love affair with Robson Green, you know, so he came and did a whole series with us. Robson's lovely, and I'd done a series with Robson before, so that was ace. But yeah, you know, it was very popular, Mount Pleasant, and I think during lockdown, a lot of people have watched it all over again. I keep getting loads of tweets and things about it.
And I mean, the other project we have to, of course, talk about was a few years back. You got to appear on Coronation Street. So, I mean, what was that like to be a part of such an iconic show like Corrie?
Well, you mean it was just before lockdown? Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in. Yeah, because Emmerdale was before that. I've done all three of them now. I did what's EastEnders in 2006, I think, and then I did Emmerdale in 2010 when I was that psycho villain, and then in 2020 I did Coronation Street, and oh, I loved it at Corrie. I've always fancied Corrie. I because I used to watch it, you know, I used to watch Ethel and Mavis and remember that lovely old the old man. You're perhaps too young. He had a little moustache. Uncle Albert. He was. I think he must have been Bill Roach's Uncle Albert. I used to love him. And then, of course, after that, you've got the wonderful who ran the pub. Oh, they're hilarious. Vera Duckworth,
Oh yeah, Jack and
Vera, and
Vera.
oh,
Jack.
Vera. Yeah. And so I found it quite a bit stunning as I was going into the Rovers and things. Yeah, I found it a bit upsetting because it was really emotional to be there. And Annie Walker, who used to run the Rovers, I'd love to run the Rovers eventually if I can. But yeah, I loved it. I mean, I sort of had this dream sort of section of, I had about, I don't know, 15 episodes. And I ended up working behind the bar at the Rovers. It was ace.
I was going to say, obviously, getting
I had
to.
a lovely.
I was going to say, getting to work with. I mean, I had Sally Diniver on the show, earlier on in the series, and she's such a lovely lady. So to work with her and obviously Joe, that must have been so much fun, and the storyline was fun as well.
It was mad, the storyline. Yeah, I love Sally. She's so nice and kind. And Joe, he's hilarious. He's so funny. He took it really seriously in that I don't think my character would ever have got married before. I said, it's the story, Joe. It's the script. It's not for real. Because they're a really good team together, those two. But yeah, she's very, very welcoming and kind. She's super. And he's really, just really funny. So I had a right laugh with them. And I know a lot of the crew there because I've done a lot of work up in Manchester. So there's a lot of crew there and costume people that I know and makeup people I know. So yes, it was a really nice time.
Now, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I could continue for hours. But just before we go, is there any messages you'd like to give to anyone who is currently stuck in hospital at the moment?
Oh gosh, just hurry up and get better, I think, as quickly as you can and get out of there because it's really difficult being in hospital. I always say to my relatives, try not to go into hospital. It's so lonely, and you've just got to really concentrate, eat your food. Mum was in hospital. We were force feeding her so she could get out and get home. If you can just concentrate on getting better is what I would say. You can get home to your loved ones and they can do it, and be safe and, take care.
Now, I just want to say again, thank you so much for giving up your time. Keep safe, and hopefully we'll speak again one day.
Yes, thank you so much. And thanks for asking me. And I hope you play my Carpenter song.